Welcome to CS288W Module 3, and we're going to get into some pretty deep stuff here. This is going to be the most difficult lab, so you're definitely going to want to watch the lab demo portion of this presentation in order to get through it. It's split up into two different things. One is going to be DHCP, and the other is going to be IPAM, IP Address Management Servers. So the IP Address Management Server is a way of managing a whole bunch of different servers all from one location. And it's something that's very useful to an IT administrator. So definitely something that you could use when you get out in the real world. And of course, DHCP, everybody uses that. So that's going to be useful as well. One of the first things you're going to want to do is to create a new server. And you're going to call it support server. So we're going to call it the same thing, or do the same thing that we did earlier as far as creating a new server goes, and go ahead and get that going. Another thing that I did not mention in one of the previous labs was that we need to join the router 01 to the domain. It actually says it in the directions. It just didn't say it I didn't mention it in the video itself. So make sure that you do that, and you're going to need to have all four of the virtual machines running. You don't necessarily have to have them all running at the same time if you don't have enough RAM going. So for the first part of the lab, you're going to have DC01, router 01, and then your client machine. And then the second half of the lab, it's going to be support server, DC01, and router 01. So it's up to you. If you can run them all at once, great. If you can't, that's okay. Just go ahead and do the three. So I'm just going to go ahead and log in here. And we're going to go ahead and get started on our discussion. So our objectives are going to be DHCP, reservations, routing and remote access, DHCP version 4 and auto configuration, client lease renewal, and then of course version 6, got to talk about that as well as IPAM. So DHCP, most Microsoft networks are going to have a server with DHCP running on it, because you're not going to want to put a static IP address on all of your workstations. Server is fine, I get that, but you don't want to do that on your workstations. It's too much work, and every time you want to make a change, you don't want to have to go to every single computer to make that change as well. So a reservation allows you to say, okay, this particular computer needs to have the same IP address every single time. And so it's a way of using DHCP, but kind of giving it a quasi-static IP address, because you're saying, hey, every single time this computer boots, it always gets the same IP address. But you control it using the DHCP reservation and the MAC address. So the MAC address is something that you would get off of it's the hardware address of the card. So if you did an ipconfig /all, then you can see the hardware address in the card itself, and that will be the thing that you actually use. It's also called the physical address. That's something that you use in the reservation. IP address management servers are used to manage IP address space and track IP address usage trends. It could also be used to automatically discover and manage DHCP and DNS servers. So if there's a DHCP or DNS server out there, it can you can use that to manage all of them in one location. So you find it, you can add it using the Add Roles and Features wizard. Several security groups are created when you install IPAM. The IPAM user members, IPAM multi-server management administrators, IPAM address space management. So this is all part of the adding the role of IPAM. Also the audit administrators and IPAM administrators. DHCP client uses network broadcast to renew a lease. So basically, if you have a computer that's running a non-static IP address, it's a client, it needs to get an IP address from a server, then it broadcasts out and it says, hey, where's the DHCP server and can I get an IP address? The DHCP server hears that request and sends the IP address over the network. DHCP version 6, the way a DHCP v6 client attempts to get the configuration depends on the values of the M and the O flags received in the router advertisement messages. So if both the M and the O flags are set to 0, the network is considered not to have the v6 infrastructure. If both the M and the 0 are set to 1, v6 is used for both IP addressing and other settings. If the M and the O is set to 0 and the 0 flag is set to 1, the M is set to 0 and the O flag is set to 1, then version 6 is used only to assign other configuration settings, which is considered stateless mode. So you don't have to understand any deeper than what you see right here at this point. This will make sense a little later on as you start learning version 6. This is sort of an introduction to version 6. We're not going to go too much into it. Version 6 clients listen to DHCP messages on a UDP port. Remember we talked about TCP ports earlier. It uses UDP port 546, and relay agents listen on v6 on UDP port 547. So those ports have to be open on your switches and firewalls, internally, of course. So there's fault tolerance that you can put into either v6 or v4. In most cases, you'll want to configure at least 2 DHCP servers. So if one goes down, you can still serve up IP addresses. Multiple DHCP servers increase the reliability, and you can also do load balancing. You can also use failover scopes that are shared between the servers to increase fault tolerance and load balancing. So in previous versions of Windows, you could create 2 scopes, and if one scope or server went down, then they just used the other one. But in 2012, you can cluster that role so they both have the same scopes, and they work together to feed the IP addresses out to the clients. And so if one goes down, the other has a duplicate scope, something you couldn't do in previous versions. So it's pretty easy to set up a DHCP server. We're going to do that here shortly, and that's one of the easier parts of this lab. With Active Directory, you just set up the DHCP servers just by adding the server role and go ahead and configure it. We're going to do a very simple one, but it's not that tough to do anyway. And as a quiz alert, a single DHCP server can handle about 10,000 clients and about 1,000 scopes. Router 003 sets a list of IP addresses for the default gateways for the client. So each one of these different things in your DHCP scope are assigned numbers, and I'll show you that when we actually do the lab, so it makes more sense. So there's roughly 75 to 100 different numbers for each of these different things, and so if you needed to set this by command line, you would have to know that number. Also, you can add additional numbers if you want. You can add custom numbers for things like phones and other things that aren't really included in the DHCP scope. So one of the most important things about DHCP is the conflict detection. You don't want a DHCP to hand out an IP address that uses the same exact IP address of a computer that's already on the network. So what it does is, if you set up the conflict detection properly, is it'll go out, see if it's already assigned, and if it is, it won't assign it again. So name resolution, process of translating computer devices names into IP addresses. Of course, all know about DNS. We talked about that earlier. WINS is the old way of doing things, and LLMNR is one of the newer ones for when you don't have a DNS server around. LLMNR is built into the new version of TCP/IP. All right, so we talked DHCP. We talked a little bit about IPAM servers. So now let's actually do it. Let's get this thing going and see if we can make a DHCP server work and also set up IP address management. So here's our different servers here below. Let's see what our lab says we need to do. All right, let's make that a little bit smaller there. So we're going to install the DHCP role on DC01. So we're going to go to Add Roles and Features, and we're going to find DHCP in the list, and then we're going to go on to the next step. So let's go to DC01. So with our server manager open, let's go ahead and click on Add Roles and Features. Next. And next again. And now we'll check the Dhcp Server box. And it says, do you want to add these other features? Yep, add the features. Next, 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 and install. And again, this may take a few minutes or longer if your computer's running slow. All right, we're all done. So let's go ahead and click close. And now we can go ahead and open up Dhcp. Okay, you can see now it has a red square in front of it, so it is not active. So just because you install it doesn't mean that it is ready to go. So we need to authorize and this is a quiz alert, you need to authorize the Dhcp scope. So you do that by right-clicking, and it's pretty easy. And you have to be, of course, logged in as the administrator, and then you can authorize it. So when you right-click on the server itself, you'll see the option right there to authorize. So now let's go ahead and create a new scope. And as per the lab, we're going to call this the general Dhcp scope. And the reason you may want to label these things is if you have more than one scope for different subnets, then you're going to want to keep them from being confused. So our starting address is going to be 75. And our end is 225. And our subnet mask length is 24, so that's correct. And we've got a few other things that we've got to set up, besides the IP address, of course. And we don't need to set up any exclusions, but we do need to set up some other things. So we've got the least duration, and I'm just going to leave that as it is, although that is a part of the lab or the quiz is going to ask you that. And we do want to configure these other options right now. So the first one is the gateway. So let's go ahead and put in the router 01 IP address. That's our gateway out to the rest of the world. And second thing is the DNS server. It put itself in is the DNS server, which is fine, and it also put in the widget LLC internal. Win servers. We don't need win servers. Let's go ahead and skip that. And we do want to activate the scope. All right, so now we have our scope going here. Here we go. There's our pool of IP addresses. So it's going to start at 75 and end at 225. And we have no address leases yet. We have no reservations set like we talked about earlier. There's our scope options, the router, the DNS server, and the domain name. So now what we need to do is we need to open up our client computer. In this case, it's Windows 8. And we're going to, let's see, let's go ahead and cancel that. As the VM tool installation. And so now what we're going to want to do is to take off our static IP address and change it to dynamic and make sure it gets the automatic IP address from the Dhcp scope we just created. Okay, so let's go ahead and change that to obtain an IP address automatically and obtain automatically. Click OK. Click OK. So now we're going to see in the bottom right hand corner this change to a triangle saying, hey, I can't find the rest of the network. What's going on? But eventually, it says here, widget LLC.internal, and it's still waiting. Okay, we're still waiting for that. Let's take a look at a command prompt and see if it's given us anything. Set command, ipconfig. Hey, look at that. We have our IP address. And we have our gateway. So let's go back to DC01. And remember a minute ago in our address leases, it was blank. Let's go ahead and refresh, and there it is. There's our client. It just picked up this IP address from the DHCP server. So we did it. Now, of course, we want to make sure that we can still get out to the internet. So we want to go ahead and make sure that router 01 is turned on, and then let's see if we can still get out. So from our client, let's go ahead and open up Internet Explorer, and hopefully we will get a web page. And there we are. So we are looking good. Let's go ahead and close that up. And now we can shut down the client computer if you want to save a little bit of processing power. Don't forget to keep in mind to look at all the different screenshots that are required during this particular lab. So earlier we saw the DHCP scope showing that the client computer was in that list. That was a screenshot there, and you've got a few others along the way. So just make sure as you're following along with this video and you're doing it, you're also doing the screenshots. So in this next part of the lab, of course, you got to create a new server. It's the last server we got to create, and you're going to call it support server, and it's going to be again 2012 standard with the GUI. So here's all the IP information that you're going to want to put in there. Of course, make sure you install the VMware tools. I've already done all this, and I've already joined it to the domain. So you do not have to make it a domain controller. Just join it to the domain just like you did your client computer. And then we're going to go ahead and install the roles that we need in order to make this an IPAM server. All right, we've got our support server up and running, and again, joined to the domain, so all that stuff is done. You'll do that on your own, and of course, you already know how to do it, so it should be no problem. Let's go ahead and click on Add Roles and Features. And next. Got our support server already named properly. If it doesn't show that, it means you forgot to name it. Next. All right, this is not a server role. This is going to be a feature. So we're going to go on to the next section here to features. And then you can scroll down a little bit till you see IP address management. Add the other features that are needed. Next, install. This one takes a little longer than some of those other roles or features because it's a bigger deal. All right, looks like it's finished. We'll go ahead and click close. And we're going to go ahead and restart the support server. And I'll fast forward to there. All right, we have rebooted the support server and open up Server Manager. And as you can see, a new item that shows up on the left-hand side is IPAM. So we'll click on that. And we are going to provision the IPAM server, walking through all these steps. So to start with, number one, connect to the IPAM server. You can see we're already connected to it, so we're good to go there. And now we're going to go ahead and click on number 2. And you get a new pop-up wizard that comes through. So now we have lots of different choices to pick here. Let's go ahead and choose the default Windows internal database, although you can use a SQL database if you want. But in our class, we're not going to do that. So then we've got the group policy based method. So that's fine. Let's go ahead and do that. Now we have to give it a GPO prefix. So as per the lab, we're going to call it IPAM 1. So once you have that, just go ahead and click next. Now we're going to just take a look at this, make sure it all looks good. And you can see that if you choose a GPO-based method, you cannot change to the manual method. That's fine. Let's go ahead and hit apply. All right, after a couple of minutes, we are successful. So it looks like it created, look at all this great stuff. It created everything for us here. Our provisioning is done. Now we want to go ahead and configure this server discovery and move on to the next step. So go ahead and click on that. And let's go ahead and click Add. Excellent. Okay, so there is our domain to discover, the root domain. Beautiful. And now we're going to go ahead and click OK. So step 3 is done. Let's go on to step 4. Alright, so now you can see when we click on step 4, it says there's one or more IPAM tasks running. So if you click on more, and you can see what's going on, and you can just go ahead and let that finish. Alright, it says it's complete, so we can go ahead and close that. And now we can go ahead and click Select or Add Servers to Manage. Alright, so you're going to see this blocked here. That's okay. We do expect to see that, so that's something we can get through. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our DC1 server. And we're going to go to Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers. And we're going to create a new user. And we're going to call that IPAM_user. Same password, and make sure it says password never expires. Oh, gotta make sure they match. There we go. Okay, so now we want to add the this new user to the domain admins group. So member of, click Add. Domain admins. Now we want to make another change and go into the built-in organizational unit up here and double click on administrator and click members and click add. And now you got to change the location. I'm sorry, not the location, but the object type, because by default computers are not in there. So go ahead and put in computers and put in support server. And then we also want to turn off the firewall. Now, normally you can just go in and open up the ports that are needed for IPAM, but just for speed's sake, we'll just turn off the firewall, and then that will get things going a little faster. And now we're going to go ahead and restart our support server. And I will fast forward through that part. Now make sure you log in as Widget LLC /administrator. If you don't, then you're going to have a problem. So while we're waiting for that to come up, let's go back to our lab here. And we're going to scroll down. We've gotten past all that good stuff. Wow, there we are. Okay, so after we've restarted our support server, we're at this spot right here. So we're going to go to PowerShell. We're going to run as administrator because you got to have those rights. And we're going to copy this command. And we're going to paste it in support server. So it looks like support server is just about ready. Let's right click on our PowerShell. Oh, actually, let's go ahead and do it a little differently. Run as administrator. Okay, so now you can see administrator in the Windows PowerShell. So now we're going to want to copy and paste in our command that we did earlier. There we are. And it's asking, do we want to go ahead and do this? Answer Y for yes. You can see it's creating the GPOs, linking everything together, did it all. Ooh, look at that. It's all done. All that good stuff just by that one command. So we did basically created a group policy object and made a bunch of changes there. You don't need to know what all that has done, although it's not a bad idea to look up the invoke IPAM GPO provisioning command, and if you are curious about what's going on in the background. So let's temporarily swing back to our DC01, and let's go to Tools, Group Policy Management. And when you expand widget.lc.internal, you see, oh, look at that. There's 3 new group policies that were just created. So those weren't there before we ran that command. So do a screenshot of this little section right here just to confirm that it got done right. Now let's go ahead and apply it. So let's close Group Policy Management, and let's go back to our PowerShell. And update the group policy. And this could take 30 seconds or so. Good, we were successful. So it won't apply the group policy until either 15 minutes has passed or you've run that command. All right, let's switch back to our support server, which we are right now. Click on the IPAM on the left-hand side, and we're back to our overview. So let's go down one step to server inventory. And let's right-click on our server and choose Edit Server. And now where it says Manageability Status, where it says Unspecified, let's hit the drop-down here and choose Managed. And then click OK. Now this is the tricky part here, because after we've done all this, our status has changed to a red X with a circle, and that is to be expected. Now, one of the odd things about this is it can take an hour, it can take overnight, you know, I've seen it take as long as a couple of days before this thing finally shows up with the green status. And once you get that green status, you can then manage DNS, DHCP, all that kind of thing, all from all the different servers in your network from just this one location. So if you wanted to add changes to your DHCP scope, or you wanted to add host records to your DNS manager, for all the different servers, this is the one place you go. So it's incredibly useful. But as far as a lab goes, it's a little bit tricky because we have to wait until this thing finally says unblocked instead of blocked. And it's anybody's guess on how long that's going to take. So you can move on to other labs and other things while you wait for this. So there's no reason to just hang out and wait for that to happen. But eventually this will become unblocked, and you will be able to get a screenshot of the little green and the fact that it says unblocked and ready to be managed. So just be patient with that, and this will work out just fine. And while we wait for that, let's just go ahead and go back to our lab. And you can see that you want a screenshot showing in the entry for the DC01, DHCP, and DNS once you get that unblocked message. And we go on to lab reflection and the knowledge adaptation. So of course you want to find out, hey, did you have any trouble? Did you have any problems? What did you do to resolve them? And how do you go about adding a Win server address to the scope option? So when we went through the DHCP scope creation, how would you add a DHCP scope option for Win's server? And under the knowledge adaptation, you've got a 1 to 2 paragraph response for you've been tasked with developing the DHCP IP assignment scheme for a branch network. So in your own words, provide an explanation of the difference between a scope exclusion and a scope reservation. They're very similar to each other, so you can look up either in the book or online what the difference is and give your own explanation as to what that is. All right, well, after about 30 minutes, I guess I got a little bit lucky. I have now that the IPAM access is unblocked and it's ready to be used. Check that out, that's great. So now go ahead and click where it says DNS and DHCP, because we know that's the one that's running on DC01. And we can see DC01's running both those things. And if we right click on it, we can choose Launch MMC. And now we can manage our DNS server from IPAM, which this looks exactly the same as if I went to DC01 and launched the DNS manager from there. And same thing over here, just right click, and you can choose to edit the DHCP properties, the server properties, make whatever changes that you want as if you were sitting right in front of that server. So that is IPAM and DHCP in Module 3 in our 288 class.